Good evening.
You are live with Courtside and
With
with Lawman.
and Carmen B.
Yes, today has been quite an interesting day.
What do you mean, Carm? Tell us a good
Well,
thing that happened.
I first want to say um, again that this is an educational and an informational program. We want you to call in with your questions, put them in the chat, and we will answer those questions for you live. This is a service that we are providing to the public free of charge. Sometimes you want to go in and do a consult with an attorney, that's going to cost you a fee. You can put your question in the chat or you can call in at 916 443 5288. Again, 916 443 5288 to get your questions answered. Now, we will state that any questions that we answer for any callers or anyone in the chat does not establish an attorney-client relationship with the caller and keep stating lawman or myself, Carmen B.
So, we're gonna get started tonight. Let's see. How about if we come up with like some positive things that occurred this week? I've had a couple, I think, and I know you probably had a couple. If not, um, we can always talk about some good things that have happened or something like that.
Well,
Especially in the news and things like that.
that is true. That is true. One good thing that happened to me today, um, in the practice of criminal law, I would like to think that we sometimes touch our clients' lives in a way that doesn't happen in other professions. And our clients also touch our lives. You will notice that there is a beautiful bouquet of roses that is here as our backdrop. And I had a kind of a tough day at court today. I was trying to get the district attorney and the court to do something that would have been the right thing for this particular client. And I got the court on board with doing it, but it required the DA's agreement, and they just would not do it. And so it was a very disappointing day for me. There was some reduction that I was able to get in the sentence, but it still was not. It was not the resolution that I wanted, and I had wanted a misdemeanor resolution. I got the court to agree with me on that, but the district attorney and her supervisor were not willing. So it was disappointing in that one. Feeling downhearted, when I returned to my office, this beautiful bouquet was waiting for me, courtesy of a client that I represented um, 10 years ago. And this person still, I touched them enough that 10 years has passed, and this person still thought enough of me to have this bouquet of flowers delivered. And so that kind of brightened my day.
Everybody needs sunshine,
Yes.
and that helps you keep going, doesn't it?
It does when we consider all the horrible things that are happening in the world right now,
Sure.
in our community and in the world.
Yeah.
One of the major things that I can think of right now is what was happening with the Haitian immigrants down at that Texas border,
That's true.
and the just complete mistreatment of them, the denial of their humanity,
Right.
when all these people are doing is seeking a better life. Now, even though we may say, well, Carmen B, we can't let everybody into our country, and that's true. We understand that, but we don't have to treat people like they are less than human.
Right. In the process of determining whether they should be here. So,
Just in
yeah,
the process of dealing with them at that border,
yeah,
they had those people had nothing, and the way those border officers were treating them. They don't deserve to be called officers because their treatment was inhumane of women, of children, of babies.
human beings. Um, I look, I see this as a tragedy on different levels. Number one, America is still so attractive that people will do anything to get here. No matter what happens, they view America as so attractive that people will do anything. And this is a repeat now of history, recent history, when we were detaining the families down at the border, the Hispanics who came across and stuff. And notice how even the Haitians got there was to go to South America first, and so they had to trek through South America to get there, just like the ones before had went through South America to get there. This isn't just from Mexico across, because Mexico probably looked and says, "Okay, if you want to go, you want to go," but but other people who are seeking freedom, who are saying the conditions in my place are so bad
And
that
we as Americans, we
we
know they're
invite it.
bad.
Yeah,
Well, we know that the conditions there are
are bad.
horrible. They've had
The earthquakes,
yeah, they've had earthquakes,
too.
they've had storms
Yes.
that have caused so much damage. The president there
Yeah,
was
assassinated.
assassinated. So
Yeah,
there is chaos.
right.
So it's not just the appeal of America. It is also the fact that the conditions in their country are so absolutely horrible that they would risk a life and limb to bring themselves and their children here. And we're also talking about young children who are traveling alone. A teenager is still a child.
Right.
If you are a parent, think about your 12-year-old child going 3,000 miles from home on their own, on foot, through foreign countries. That is what these people are having to go through.
And they came on what they believed. And if you look at the news stories, if you watch the news, a lot of the right was saying, "Hey, they're just going to open up the borders and people can come." And people are thinking, "Well, okay, maybe we can come now." They're not. They don't understand the complex laws, because we don't even understand the complex laws of letting people in, and they don't realize they're going to get turned away and actually just
And you
taken
could,
away.
and that is true, but you could turn someone away without hitting them with a leather strap that you use to control your horse. And there was some kind of distinction made when the reports came in that they were using whips, that, oh,
Yeah.
well, it wasn't an actual whip. If it's still a leather strap
Use it
against
as a
human
whip.
skin, it causes extreme pain. So I don't think we need to distinguish in the fact that it wasn't an actual whip. They were treated inhumanely.
Right.
And the Border Patrol agents who participated in that, shame on you. How do you go home to your own family and your own children? How do you look at yourself in the mirror and mistreat another human being that way?
I know how, but that's not the subject matter. The subject matter is,
How? I
how do
want to
we
hear
do that?
how,
How
because
do
they
they
look
do
at
it?
them and don't see themselves, because they look at them and see brown skin, and brown skin to them is less than human.
And they're ordered to do something. Yep. And inside themselves, they are not only feeling the need of, we don't need people here, but that you have put me in power to be the ones to push people back. The other citizens are going to be happy that I'm a first responder on the border, because I'm pushing these people back and I'm keeping them from just bum rushing your border.
Well, anyone who feels that way and thinks that that treatment of children, because you can prevent people from entering, which they were very well doing by keeping them corralled there under that bridge. It didn't require the additional mistreatment, especially considering these people had no food. They were very little resources. And my understanding is there were some who were trying to cross back over or cross over into Mexico to get a few resources, food, to bring back to try and feed some of the ones that were there. And they were abused as they were trying to cross back over. Imagine for a second being that father who's carrying whatever groceries you have gotten, whatever food items you have gotten, trying to reach your family to feed them, to keep them alive, not injuring anyone, not committing any other kind of crime other than the crime of trying to provide for your family, which is not a crime.
Now, let's put this on a big scale. We've seen this before. I mean, this is right now, you can take it as a policy of our country. And I was listening last night to individuals who were slaves who were telling their story. They were filmed, or at least recorded, back in the 40s and 50s. And they talked a lot about how here, how in slavery times, that people had to eat from a trough, that they would just throw stuff in a trough and your kids have to run and go eat it. as fast as they could, or else it'd be gone. They talked about having to kill insects and lizards and things like that in order to really have sufficient food to live. And that was one of the things that you don't that you didn't know is that you weren't exactly fed well, you weren't exactly kept well, but yet you were required to build and work and do everything. And we can never know what those conditions are like. And here, I'm seeing is wow, we're now pushing people away at a great rate and doing it brutally. So that's why when you say what goes through their mind, it seems to be almost like a air of behavior, of morality that seems to come out when America is pushed, when it's challenged to be something more than what it was, and what it was not very pretty at times. And then it's hard for America to look at itself and say, yeah, that's what we were. And I hate it because we we do this. We say, and I'm not even saying true or not. If you were molested as a child, if you were beaten, if you had that kind of trauma, and you were 5 years old, it didn't go away in the next 20 years. It might not go away in the next 40 years, 50 years. It will never go away. And when that kind of trauma is here in this country to people, and we want it to go away, well, it's not going to go away. There's going to have to be some intense therapy going on or something like that. People have survived, and that's it. They've just learned to survive. And we all, descendants of slaves, have to be so thankful for the people who decided, I'm going to just survive and make sure that, I can probably create a better place for the people below me.
What I also know is this is that our government can make exceptions for people who are coming from environments or countries that have experienced natural disasters. Our country, we just, I forget what the numbers
Wars,
were,
even.
but
Yeah.
as a result of what was going on in Afghanistan,
Right.
we brought in thousands and thousands of people from Afghanistan. Now, I'm not saying that those people should not have been brought in. So that is not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying if we can make exceptions for certain people, we can make those same exceptions for other people. We certainly can treat them humanely in processing them and coming to the decision of whether or not we're going to allow them to stay or not.
And the terrible irony is that America, look how many immigrants are here. We Even now, as of this day, we have people who would be our parents who were not born in this country, sort of like we're first level
Well,
immigrants.
America is a nation of
Of
immigrants.
immigrants,
It is
yes.
a nation of immigrants. The
And
only
has
people
the
who
worst
are
policy.
not immigrants are the Native
Native.
Americans.
That's right.
We have a comment in the chat from CC Badger. Yes, Lord, that was
Yeah.
horrible and so inhumane.
Oh yeah. And I mean, and we're gonna watch it. It's very similar to. I mean, we get to watch riots and we get to watch people who fight rioters, and we get to watch the injustice of the justice system at times when we try to prosecute people and we feel that that justice should have been served. I mean, that kind of stuff is traumatic too, and it keeps on going. There's trauma and there's trauma and there's trauma, and all from a nation who doesn't want to look at itself and say, hey, maybe it's all coming from within. And somehow that's what has to change, an inner kind of turning thing, because they say, I mean, even if you had a habit, right, you ain't gonna get rid of that habit unless you admit you got a habit and you want to get rid of it. So America, we're not going to change these policies. They won't agree. Our Senate and won't even agree on things like this. To have some kind of policy, something to be put in place that people can go through to be here, because the same people who are voting, who are in our legislature, who are in our Senate, same people, parents came over here and just landed, and they can't extend that to others. I mean, yeah. So anyway, So, Carm,
Go ahead.
the great thing that happened for you today. Let's
Yes.
go back to some positivity.
All right.
All right. Anything else great you want to talk about that happened to you?
Go ahead and tell us
All
something great
right.
that happened to
Woohoo.
you.
Okay. Had a case dismissed. Before I even had to do the 1538.5 motion, which would be the motion to suppress. The facts were pretty strong on my side. They officers in like we teach, right? Um, have to have a reason to detain individuals
We
and
call
have to
that
have a
reasonable, articulable suspicion.
that's right, got to have a reasonable suspicion, and then they have to have probable cause to search thereafter. So I was dealing with an individual who was merely waiting for some a food truck. So car stopped and parked, gets out and talks to other people who are waiting for the food truck. The officer feels that that kind of conversation is suspicious, so he watches the individual as they go back to their truck, and they throw their backpack satchel into the truck, and then go into the food store because you're at a mini mart area, say where the food truck is. As the person is there, the officers drive up. They talk to the person that was in the car before and detain him, and then they come over to my guy's area, and there's someone in the passenger seat. And they detain that individual by taking his wheelchair out and taking him literally out of his car, who he says, I'm not on probation parole and you can't search my car. But they take him and then remove him.
What is their basis for contacting them to begin with?
The windows were tinted
Hmm. I noticed they've been trying to use that window tint thing quite a bit lately.
all the time now. They will use window tint. It has been too many times to be true. And when windows are down, when you know it isn't, they're just saying, I thought you got tint on your windows. And they're saying that the law says no tint. And then when you correct them, oh, yeah, but it has to be a certain amount of tint. And I can investigate that. And that's why I've like pulled you over. All right. But anyway, so it was window tint. Okay. But the car
On a
stopped and
parked
parked.
car.
Yes. Okay. And so, of course, look into the bag that was thrown in the back seat, allegedly, and find a contraband. So that was what they walk over, grab my guy, bring him in. But um, got it dismissed. So it was a perfect lesson in how they operated way too fast without any reason to do so. And so it goes to show how we don't want officers just making up what is suspicious for them. You see, if I'm at a food truck and I'm lined up in cars and maybe we're all outside talking to each other, you know, in other cars, that shouldn't be, aha, they're all communicating together, therefore something suspicious is going on. And it may be suspicious. It can be suspicious as hell, but it's got to be reasonable suspicion. It
Not
wouldn't be,
it has to be
yeah,
reasonable suspicion that a crime is occurring.
right.
Because otherwise every cop can just say, yeah, you look
You
suspicious to
look
me.
suspicious. See, that is not enough. It's got to be suspicious in terms of a crime is occurring and people talking to each other. If I want to throw my backpack in my car or not, take it out. That shouldn't be suspicion that I'm committing a crime. So, it goes to show that the justice system kind of works sometimes, and the decisions are made, which are the right decisions prior to having to even litigate. Now, I'll tell you this, it just reiterates what we talk about when it comes to meeting up with police officers that you did not call. Okay? The rules are pretty clear. You just ask, am I free to go? Can I go? That's it. If they say yes, you go. If they don't, you only have to give them your ID, your name, really, and driver's license number so that they can look you up. And then you ask for your lawyer so that they do not then continue to interrogate you. And then they have to come up with reasonable suspicion to even contact you to that point. So you're well within your rights not to talk to police officers at any point in time. And that would be Florida versus Royer. Please Google it, Florida versus the little V, Royer, Royer. In that case, the Supreme Court of the United States will tell you that you never have to talk to police officers, and you shouldn't. If there's a reason for you to do so, then you probably would have called them to the accident scene or to the crime scene or something. So if that's the case, of course you would talk to them. But if they come to a scene, if they pull you over, if they just contact you and it seems like it's even friendly, you get to decide whether it's a consensual communication or whether it's a detention or not. And always follow the rule. Always follow the rule. Just always follow it because it's the safest way. You shouldn't be fighting your case out on the street, at the door of your car, or anywhere. Never fight your case out there. That didn't look like a courtroom and it's not a courtroom. And until you become a lawyer, you might not be qualified to argue your case out there. So that's why you hold down to the rules supplied to you by the U.S. Constitution and you follow through on them and you exercise your rights. You know, one thing is knowing, the other thing is exercising. So I have to always remind people of that. One thing we wanted to also mention is that, at least I've noticed, is that courts are allowing the lawyers and witnesses to come in live now and actually demanding them depending on which judge you may get assigned to. So if you have a preliminary hearing that might be going out soon, even in the home court now, I noticed that they have been posting up some DAs and things like that. So, but yet they're allowing others to use the Zoom when it's not their home court, so to speak. And defendants are being allowed to sit inside the courtroom, but distancing, but so a few at a time. So they're trying to get back to what we would call normal, but you still have a lot of the devices, which are the panels, plexiglass, the microphones, and the cameras and everything in the courtroom.
And I actually think it will be quite a while, if ever, we get back to what you referred to as normal. Thus far, in the preliminary hearings that I have had, although I and my clients normally appear in person, because to me it is an extremely important part of the process, the witnesses have still been allowed to appear via Zoom. The district attorneys have been allowed to appear via Zoom. In terms of my experience with the home courts, they are allowing defendants to appear in person if they wish, but they also can appear via Zoom.
Yeah.
And it is still not fully open to the public.
Right.
If you want to attend a proceeding and you are not an attorney and you're not the defendant on calendar, you have to request special permission through the Sacramento County Court website, and that's SAC Court. If you Google SAC Court, it'll pull up the Sacramento Superior Court website, and there's a specific section on there that lists out COVID COVID protocols.
And I think that goes also for the departments at the sixth floor courthouse too. In fact, there was a reminder sent around today for lawyers, if you have witnesses or family or anybody.
Well, just if they're going to be showing up, and if you're requesting that they are allowed to be show up in person, and this includes defendants, you are supposed to put their name, notify the master calendar so that they put their name on a list, because there is still deputies outside, and if the person's name is not on the list, they're not going to allow them into the courthouse for the proceeding, and that includes your client. And you don't want your client to get stuck outside when you're inside ready to do the hearing.
Yeah, it just takes a little call downstairs and they'll let them in. But okay, so those are most of the things that I know I wanted to cover.
There was the last few weeks. There was a lot of news coverage for a young woman who had been, I believe, traveling cross country with her fiance, and then the fiance returned without her, not really saying anything, and she was missing. And there was news coverage almost 24/7 about that.
6 or 7 agencies, including the FBI,
involved in this search. You could not miss, seeing it as it was on the news constantly.
Yeah.
And certainly we want someone that is missing to be found. But what we also want is that same kind of effort when the person who is missing is African American.
Correct.
And we're not seeing that.
No.
Now, what do you
I
think the
mean,
reason for that is? I mean, clearly she was not the only person who was missing. And this is not
right.
to minimize the fact that she was missing,
Right.
but she was not the only person who was missing.
That's right.
There are children that go missing
Black
every
men,
single day.
young black men have
Yes.
been prominent, and you'll see it in the news now. One of them was recently just found. And stuff.
I think you may be referencing Jelani
Yes,
J.J. Day,
exactly.
who was an Illinois State University graduate student
Ended up missing.
who ended up missing, I believe,
His car was parked somewhere.
I believe it may have been in August. But there was not this kind of effort. I did not hear about him until there was an article saying, hey, wait a minute.
What about all these black people?
Yeah, what about these African Americans that are missing, that are not getting these kind of resources or this kind of media coverage so that they can be found?
Right.
I believe
there was. Funny is Walsh. Walsh, the American
Adam
Walsh, whose son back in. I remember when all of that went down. I was in San Francisco at the time. He criticized the police because of allowing the guy to just come back and walk away. Because one of the things is this guy shows up in her car after they go camping without her.
Well, now let's just do a little bit of hypothesizing.
All right.
Okay. So, Keith.
Yes.
If you and let's say
anybody
went on a cross country camping trip,
and we're social influencers, so every day we're documenting this and sending stuff.
And then you came back without that other person.
All of a sudden, she became missing.
And with no explanation. Well, she's missing because the family says, well, wait, we haven't heard from her. And then you came back and then decided, I'm not going to say anything about the person I was with and where they went and why they're not here. What do you think would happen? Would they take you down and maybe do a little bit of interrogation with you?
Well, I think what they would do is feed me my favorite cookies, which would be chocolate chip. And they would ask me, Keith, geez, we're not really looking at you and stuff. Just go about your way.
That's really what you think would happen?
No, of course not. I think, first of all, look, they can only interrogate me as long as I say, if I take the fifth, I take the fifth. Okay? Now, the thing is, they didn't really force him to take the fifth, but he took the fifth. So they didn't say, hey, we're going to grab you or all that kind of stuff. He's just like, I am taking the fifth. Okay. So they claimed they had nothing, of course, to hold him then.
I can guarantee you, Mr. Staten, and you tell me if I'm wrong, if you and someone that you knew, and let's make that someone a person of European descent, are on a trip and you show back up in Sacramento without that person and no explanation for where they are, and their family calls and says they're missing, and
because we live together,
and you were the last
I live with this person,
and you were the last person that they were with, I think you're going to get a little bit more than what happened there.
Oh yeah,
and now he's missing.
Well, they just can't find him.
Well, that would be missing.
He
may be purposefully missing. He may be making himself.
Yes. I totally believe he is at this particular point.
But here's the other thing. Even if, because you're going to say, hey, wait a minute, Lawman and Carmen B., what about that reasonable, articulable suspicion there? So they didn't have enough because they didn't know if anything had happened to her. Maybe she actually just decided, I don't want to be with him anymore.
That's right.
And that certainly is true. But you know what they would have done if it was Mr. Staten? They would have put a surveillance on him to try and figure out where this missing person is. If he knows, they would have applied for a search warrant to apply a GPS device on Mr. Staten's vehicle so they could see where he's going. They would have asked to put a trap on his phone so they could see what are his conversations. What is he texting about?
Where's his phone pinging at? Oh, no, for sure. They
and none of those things were done. It's like, oh, you don't want to tell us where she is? Okay. All right. Thank you. Sorry we bothered you.
Bothered you.
Why don't we get that? Why don't we get the sorry? Sorry we bothered you.
Because it always comes back, to
The history of this
everything.
country.
Yes, it does. Yes, yes. I mean, everything goes back to the beginning, right? I mean, everything does. I'll tell you what's odd about this one. Look, they live together.
I know.
Okay. I mean, here's the weirdest part. No, check this out. This
Okay.
is why I would have held the guy. This is what it gave me probable cause. When did she leave you? Under what circumstances?
I don't want to answer that.
Oh, you don't
Mr.
want to answer?
Staten.
Thank you so much, sir. Now, I would have trailed him, and I would have.
Well, you can't trail him. You would, in order to.
I mean, I would have used whatever necessary legally to put something on his car or device. I would have possibly even grabbed him and held him and charged him. You know why? Because by the time they asked for a preliminary hearing, the coroner has now come back and said it was a homicide. So if the coroner, as long as the coroner is saying it's a homicide, you're the last person, I got reasonable suspicion. I got a little maybe probable cause, depending on what they found at the scene.
And now your added factor of, now there's the added factor of flight.
Attempting to fly. Because I grabbed
he's flown the coop.
Well,
they have it now?
Point, no. I mean, he has now, but I'm just saying, no, that's why I would have grabbed him. I would have arrested.
But they did not.
You see? And then said, okay, set a prelim.
So
in 10 days.
We will let the rest of the media give additional coverage to that story. We're giving it that all. Right. We do want to talk about the fact that there is another African-American man who is missing, Daniel Robinson. He's 24 years old. He's a geologist, and I believe he has been missing since June, and his family is still looking for him. So please do a Google search on his name, look for the picture. If you've seen him, if you've seen someone who looks like him that you think might be him, I'm sure the family probably has a tip line set up where you can contact them. And
I actually, to bring it more personal, to tell you the truth, I have a client and friend whose brother is missing right here in Sacramento. She sent me the flyer. They have also, it's so funny how this all has hit, right about the same time, because they have gone to the police to look for him. But they're not getting a lot of.
This is here in Sacramento?
This is right here in Sacramento. They've been putting up signs, missing signs, and things like that. I know you can't see it.
Just give them the name. Give them the name and the information.
What has happened here? They're looking for David A. Montgomery. David is 64, African American, 5'6", 135 pounds, short gray hair. He has a sizable tumor on his neck that you would definitely recognize. He suffers from confusion and short-term memory. He's at risk. He was last seen at a 76 gas station on Folsom Boulevard near Sunrise. And if you have information, please contact the Rancho Cordova Police Department at 916-362-5112 and leave a message, please. David A. Montgomery is his name. He is 64, has a large tumor on his neck. He's only 5'6", weighing 135 pounds. His family's just looking for him here in Sacramento. And it's been a bit since he was last seen August 9th. So they're very concerned, because he would leave and be homeless and things like that. So just a little word out there. It's just odd that it comes up, the issue of are people missing, and when that happens, how come we don't get a bigger response? It's so funny because we always seem to be saying, how come we have to be treated differently and unequally? It's almost like, well, that's been the nature of the country. You can't change the nature of things sometimes. There's a story about a alligator and a frog. It's in the movie The Crying Game, about how alligator says, hey, frog, I can take you to the other side. And the frog says, all right, cool. And he says, get on my little snout.
I think the frog is a little bit hesitant and was like, hey, You saying you're gonna take me across, but you might eat me.
That's right.
No. I promise. I promise I
That's
won't
right.
eat you. I
I'm not going to
promise.
eat you.
I'm gonna treat you equally.
That's right.
I'm gonna treat you fair.
That's right. And then Frog jumps up. So they get halfway there, and then the alligator flips him off and holds him in his teeth. He's like, "Hey, I thought you said you weren't going to eat me and stuff." And he says, "You're the food. This is my nature. This is what I do. Why would you not believe I'm going to do what is my nature?"
Because you told me something different, and I trusted you.
Mm.
I trusted you. I took you as an alligator of your word.
But I'm an alligator. You can't trust me. See? So it's sort of like that's what we're playing with sometimes. Is we're always a frog going, dang it! I thought you said separate but equals. Cool.
So one of our viewers sent us a video of a Republican lieutenant governor candidate who was dragged out of a meeting by law enforcement officers, and the viewer commented, I guess they reminded him that he was African American by giving him that particular treatment. Because you have some people who are, and of course you are certainly welcome to be a member of any political party that you choose to be a part of. But if your political party is a racist party, we are going to say that. If they engage in racist behavior, we are going to say that as well. And if you are part of that party, don't be shocked and surprised when they give you that same mistreatment that they would give to any African American. Don't think that you are protected.
Get a pass
By being a member of that party.
Yes.
Because when the police show up, they apparently see you as just another
individual who may be in the way.
That's one way of saying it.
Yeah. I mean, kids got to go to college and all that stuff. They got to retire. So, and of course, this last week we've seen more video, more occasions of just abusiveness to individuals who are being detained and they're not doing anything. It's amazing because you can overnight you can get on your Facebook and the articles that come through will just amaze you. And it's just happening. The funny part is it's happening all over the place. And my theory of how come there's always a black police chief who's explaining this stuff, I think it gets more credibility when I see places in Iowa, Wyoming, and things like that, and they got black police chiefs and stuff. I'm like, wait a minute, and he's got to explain, what happens here. And I just,
Well, we can't assume that someone's melanin determines their views.
Oh, it doesn't.
Because someone that believes something is justified, even though we're all seeing something different before our eyes on video, can find a way to give an explanation that in their minds justifies the conduct and the behavior. I would remind our viewers again, if you have any questions, you can call in and reach us at 916-443-5288. Again, that number, 916-443-5288. Again, you can also comment in the chat and we will answer your question if you put it in the chat as well.
It's funny you would bring that up because I was also watching something where Candace Owens was speaking and Killer Mike was there and T.I. It was a little forum and everything. And when you talk about and what Lee Elder's rhetoric was
Larry.
Here, Lee. Sorry, Lee Elder. Shoot, the great golfer Lee Elder. Larry Elder. What his rhetoric was during this election, he if you I noticed something with Candace and both of them. They are so fast with statistics. Very, very quick on statistics. They will answer constantly in statistics. And there's this other guy, I think his name is Shapiro.
Ben Shapiro.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
A white guy who they honor and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yes.
And say, oh, he's so smart and he's got this, he's knocked somebody out and all this kind of stuff. He is the same way. They'll just come back with statistics.
But you can make up statistics.
And, well, sure
and you can formulate them in such a way that they support your position,
Oh yeah.
even if you looked at it as a whole, it would not.
But the rhetoric all leans to black people, you're being duped. You're being duped. Those Democrats over there, they want you to do something for them. They've always duped you. So you better wake up because they're duping you now. And I'm not even a Republican. I just got woken by Trump and the Republican Party and stuff. And they just woke me, you see, to know that we're being duped. We don't have to believe in this, in racism. And when we talk about it, just like when we talk about it, and there's plenty of things out there.
It's not a belief. It's a sight. It's an experience.
Well, but when we talk about it, that's when it becomes
It's a
real.
reality. Oh,
But
so we can
only-
just pretend that it doesn't
Yes,
exist.
yes, because
And
it
so
doesn't.
even when we see it and it's happening to us on a daily basis,
Right.
we just tell ourselves it doesn't exist.
Some people would argue that on that side would argue, well, you, Keith and Carm, hey, well, you got your degrees, you're doing pretty good. So that wasn't racism, was it? Because if it was racism, how would you get to where you were? And they would argue that. I mean, I'm seeing them, watch them go, that the worst thing in the world is that the Democrats got you believing that you can't be anything. But you can be. If you just take the racism out of it, you can just be anything. We don't have to be racist. And we're bringing it upon ourselves.
And we
we
wish
better
that they
stop
wouldn't.
killing each
We
other.
wish that
We
they
better
wouldn't
stop
be
killing each other.
racist. Well, again, we're going to stop everyone. What they like to try and do is change the topic. When we're talking about racism, then they want to bring up, well, there's this crime wave amongst your people killing
right.
each other.
Right.
Those are two different issues. We can talk about that issue, but if the topic is racism, that's right where we're going to stay. We can talk about how racism has resulted in ghettos, how racism was part of redlining,
But that's only if you want to believe that.
No,
Only if you want to
that's not
believe
based
it.
on belief. That's based on fact. So when my father got back from his military tour after World War II, he was not given the same opportunity and the funding to purchase a home that white GIs were given. Now, what is that? He fought in the same war that they fought in. He bled red blood for America. So why is it that they were given money to finance homes and he was not?
I can answer that. You see, even though it may have turned out that way, what has happened is his daughter has become a great attorney.
Oh, but we're still talking about what happened to him
but
and how that then impacted me.
But we've got to progress. We've got to progress.
It impacted my wealth. Had my father been able to benefit from the GI Bill as was promised by his country, then that would have given him more to pass on to me, that generational wealth that we see that results in the huge wealth gap between white Americans and African Americans. And that's despite my degree. There are white people who don't have a degree, but because of generational wealth are still wealthier than I am.
However, then black people have to look to their public schools, and they have to blame their public schools for failing them and not educating them properly. They're going to have to look to themselves and pull themselves up by their own bootstraps.
Well, you can't pull yourself up by a bootstrap if you don't have a boot.
Darn it. Darn it. See, but I'm doing it obviously because these are the debates and the talks that are going on. And a lot of times, these individuals are very, very slick. They're able to throw out. Did you know that 92% of all black families do not have fathers, and therefore that's a big thing.
And that would be kind of hard. That would be interesting if 92% didn't have fathers, because I think a father is required at least for
not in the home. He's not living in the home, and we know that if fathers are not in the home and they're not raising their children, then their children are going to be likely
let's talk about at one point in time how fathers were discouraged from being in the home.
But they're not doing it now, and that's the thing. Is that
it doesn't matter that they're not doing it now. If I do something to you that affects you for the rest of your lifetime, saying that I'm not doing it to you right now doesn't help. So if I stab you right now and I cause you to then have all sorts of medical issues 5 years from now, when you're still suffering from those medical issues, I can't say to you, but I'm not stabbing you right now, Keith.
Yeah, but
I guess I can say that, but I can say that, but it doesn't make sense because what I've done to you,
heal.
Because what I've done to you has still had a serious
lingering
impact.
effect. So you're saying that what you do is has a lingering effect on me, correct? Well, I'll tell you this. See, that's that Democrat way of thinking and talking. The Democrats to make you believe that you need somebody, that you need them, and
Oh
they're going to
no, I just
pacify
need
you.
my government to not mistreat me in the way that it has and for generations before me. So just let's not just speak about the opportunity being equal. Let's try and get to that point where it's not just a theory, where it's a reality. Where if my father has fought in the same war as your father and they're both entitled to benefits, my father gets those benefits that he's entitled to. And since you didn't give him those benefits that he was entitled to, that's okay. You can go ahead and give them to his children. We will accept them. He earned them. Thank you, America. I
Well,
love
America
you.
is
I
not
love
USA
you.
Insurance or anything like that, where they only serve the military. That's not how America works. See, America has to work on progress, and as we progress, we should get better as people. And as long as we continue to believe the Democrats' way of thinking, and that is that we need help, that our families being broken up is not the problem, our killing each other is not the problem. As long as we keep on that mindset, we're going to have the victim mentality, and the victim mentality always defeats yourself.
Oh, it's certainly not a victim mentality. You don't get to make me a do something to me that makes me a victim and then tell me again, oh, that happened to you. So sad. Now just go on with your life.
Because we cannot punish the people who did something to your grandparents and your great grandparents. There's no way of doing that at this time.
Except that people who are still alive have benefited from those things. And so since they have benefited, and again, it's not just private people. We're talking about things that our government sanctioned, that we couldn't move into certain neighborhoods, allowing covenants and restrictions on who could move into a certain area. So even if my family did pull themselves up by the imaginary bootstrap that they all put together and worked on to get, we were still limited.
But
But
it
let's
was
move on.
Democrats that were behind those laws too, as we saw with the crime bill, that it was primarily Clinton and then Biden who then caused for this mass incarceration. And so we should hold the Democrats at fault.
Well, we can hold whoever we want at fault. Let's start talking about fixing it. Let's start talking about, let's move to that conversation.
All right, which is good.
But let's
Oh
go ahead.
no, I'm about to. I love to talk about fixing because I think the first thing is that we all just have to look at the fact that there is a problem. I really always believe if you don't believe that there's a problem, then you're not going to try to solve it. And you definitely won't try to solve it with your brethren. So it may be a problem, but as soon as you can solve it, you're cool. Now, for me, should we not kill each other? Oh, absolutely.
But those are two different issues,
Hold
and
on,
I
hold
don't want
on,
to play
hold
their
on.
game
I'm going to
when
talk
we're
to you.
talking about one thing
I'm
about
not
racism
saying
and how it has
I'm not playing
impacted
their
us.
game.
I don't then want to shift it to, oh, but you guys are killing each other. That's not what we're talking about. Again, the example, the same as with, okay, we say Black Lives Matter, and then someone says, well, all
Blue
lives
lives.
matter.
That's
Blue
right.
lives. We're not talking
I
about
know
that
that.
right now. So, for example, when there is a conversation about breast cancer and research for breast
Yep.
cancer, no one then says, well, wait a minute. What about liver cancer? We want to talk about liver cancer. No, you talk about the topic at hand. And so if we're talking about Black Lives Matter, that's what we're talking about at that particular point.
Now,
And we don't need to talk about those other lives. We can talk about them at a different time. And again, I will say there is no such thing as a blue life. You put on a uniform, it is a job like any other job. We appreciate those of you who are good officers and who do your job in a fashion that brings honor to yourself and to your community. And those of you who do not, you should get out of the profession. But see, at the end of the day, when you finish that shift, you take that uniform off. And when I see you in the grocery store, if I don't know you, I don't know what you do. I don't know if you're an officer. I don't know if you're a garbage man. I don't know if you're an accountant. All I want you to do is to give me the same treatment that you would expect back, the same treatment that you would want given to your wife or to your daughter. But see, at the end of the day, I can't take off this melanin. I don't want to, but I can't. So that's why there is no blue lives.
great point, Carm. But here's what I'm about to say. I, believe it or not, love Malcolm X. I follow Farrakhan. I have watched a lot of things that Farrakhan and Malcolm X talk about. One of the things that they do talk about is us getting control of us, and that we create more fathers, more homes, and things like that. And the way to do that is we have to be here to do so. So when I say something about not killing ourselves, I'm meaning it on a literal, philosophical way, in every way possible, that we in turn help each other,
Well,
in turn help grow each other, in turn educate each other, so that we enlist and that we lift up and we enrich each other, and not allow ourselves to die. That's what I'm saying. Because we can be killed at, I don't care who's killing. The point is, we have to survive in order to thrive. And we have to build our homes and our families and things, and even our schools.
and again, stop hating someone because they live on the other side of town, but they've done nothing to you. Stop
True.
hating them because of where they were born.
That's right. Even amongst ourselves. I mean,
That's
we can.
who I'm talking about.
Okay.
Is
I mean,
amongst ourselves.
definitely. I mean, really. We have to.
But again, when you bring up the guns and the killing and that sort of thing, let me say this: who who owns the gun manufacturers? Who are those?
Right
Who
here.
Okay, so who is manufacturing those guns that are then making their
That's
way
right.
into our neighborhoods?
Oh wait, I'll give you a better one. Crack cocaine.
Well, we know what happened with
Okay.
crack cocaine.
See, no,
Crack
I'm not
cocaine was
saying they're not dropping
purposely
the bombs
put
on
there.
us. Oh, they're dropping the bomb. But see, check this out. All I'm saying is, when that bomb does drop, we all have to look at each other like, okay, did you see that bomb drop? I saw that bomb drop. Let me hold you a little closer. And you see, that's the kind of, when they drop a bomb, it draws us closer. It makes us even more determined to be together and move together. I mean, I'm gonna tell you, my whole reparation dream, I think it works. I really do. I think it's the only answer. I heard Malcolm and Farrakhan will tell you, is that one of the problems that America has is it's never going to be satisfied as long as we occupy this land, apparently. And they're not saying kill off everybody or do anything harmful or murderous. They're just saying that there has to be some sort of independent occupancy if, in fact, we're not going to be able to be joined completely. That's all. And from the history, we can't believe that our ticket now says we're free to go into all rides, all events, just go on, have a good time, free pass, go. It's never been that way. When we create it even on our own, when we do things on our own, they tend to get in the way of the powers that be. It's whether it's jealousy, envy, whatever it is, whether it's just that they do not want us to appear to win or have overcome. Doesn't matter what it is, it's what we do to it.
One of our other viewers, I wanted to share this because I can't remember, I think it may have been last week's show or the show before that, where we were discussing how you could record incidents if you were contacted by law enforcement. And he sent me a device, he sent me a SKU for a device which is sold at a store that he works at. I believe it's called let's see if I can see it. It looks like part of it is missing, but SOTV Cop Cam by Atomic. SOTV Cop Cam by Atomic. And apparently it's almost pin sized. You can place it in your pocket, and then it can record the interaction. And therefore, you don't have to worry about the cop, taking your phone out of your hand or knocking your phone down so that it can't record the interaction.
Do both.
At his store, they were on sale for $39.99. But I'm sure you can also look it up on the internet, Google it, and see what price you can find. But we think that those are probably a very good device to have. And I think here at the show, in a few weeks, what we're probably going to do is have some of those, and we're going to do some kind of raffle or lottery so that we can get those out
to
popular. People.
Because truthfully, if something like that is $40, that's cheap.
And now again, cheap is relative.
Well,
Cheap is relative,
of course,
lawman,
it's
because it is
relative.
based on, so $40 it may be a lot for someone who is living paycheck to paycheck.
I'm not
So-
saying it applies to all people, Carl. I'm
Okay,
saying
so I'm
though,
just saying a lot
it's
of our clients are
cheap.
people without resources.
I
So
get it.
something that is cheap for you and
Yep.
me is not cheap for them.
I get
So
it.
we are going to attain some of those, and we're going to figure out
But let
if
me
we're going to
figure
do a
out.
lottery or a raffle or
Here's the
something
thing.
to
Here's
get
what
them
I
out
mean.
to some of our viewers.
Here's what I mean by cheap, $40 cheap. I mean this. I'll collect enough bottles and cans to get $40.
Keith,
If that was going to give me a camera
Keith,
that I can film them,
Keith, okay,
it might take 2 months.
okay.
Come on now,
The people who are
we use
collecting
enough
cans
bottles.
and bottles are doing those to live. If you're just talking about in the comfort of your
Are
home,
you saying that this
I have
camera
all
ain't going to help
these.
me to live?
That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is
All
they're
right.
doing it so that they
Okay.
can. Here's
Day
my
to
food
day.
for the
I
day.
hear you. I hear you.
So I'm just saying
But
for
there's
a lot
of
our
bottles out there.
for a lot of our clients, $40 is a lot of money.
I get it.
So keep that in mind, because
have it
I
in
think
mind.
sometimes, and I'm not just saying just you, but I think sometimes those of us who are professional forget that there are people out there who live literally
nothing.
paycheck to paycheck, and almost not paycheck to paycheck, because they use
have
some of
nothing.
these
House
payday
insurance.
loans,
Yep.
which then charge them some exorbitant
Yep.
amount of interest. We have a comment from CC Badger that says, I love you guys. We have a comment from April that says, check out Amazon. So April is saying that you can Google that, and Amazon probably has very similar devices, if not that same device, for sale.
Carmen over here making me look like a Republican or something just because I play one on TV.
All right, we
You
are
know what
down,
I meant by cheap. Okay.
relatively.
Of course,
cheap.
relatively.
Yes.
God.
We have to say that. We have to say that. We're getting down to the last few minutes.
I know it's a lot of politics tonight, a lot of strong feelings tonight. But
and Keith and I like
same.
to play. Keith likes to play devil's advocate and get me riled up.
I know. I know. Because it's so cute.
He knows that I'm very serious about a lot of these topics.
I am too. She knows that. I'll go down for the count, but I like to also throw it out there, Riley. Make sure my soldier's back is ready to go.
And CC Badger, we love you too. We appreciate you being here every Friday when you can. We appreciate you telling other people about the show. Again, we remind you that we're providing this service where you can call in and with your legal questions. We didn't answer a lot of legal questions on this particular occasion, but every Friday at 6 p.m. to 7, we are here. A lot of times, if you want to talk to an attorney, you have to pay a consult fee. We're inviting you to call into our show because, again, we are educational, we are informational, and we are here for the public.
Right. And tell your friends, tell someone else. If you know someone, and say, hey, hit them to Courtside.
Yes, and if you're not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe to our channel. Also, if you're watching, hit the like button.
Yes.
We realize that everybody can't devote an hour, so we're also going to try and do some just little clips from the show that are about 5 minutes, so that you have 5 minutes in your day. You can watch those as well. I do have a sad event that happened to me today. And I want to dedicate this show to a young lady. Her name is Letitia Spencer Tarver. She was the wife of Mr. Tarver and the sister-in-law to Trayvon and Travell, whom Lawman and I both know. And she passed away on August 31st in Reno, Nevada, saving the lives of her children. Our heart and our condolences go out to the Spencer family, the Tarver family, and the Tyler family. We are so sorry for your loss. She was an amazing woman. She was an amazing mother, and she will be well remembered, and you will keep her alive in your thoughts and your memories of her. We thank you again for spending this evening with us here at Courtside.
Courtside with Lawman and Carmen B.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good Friday evening and weekend. Next week, we'll see you same time, same
Same
channel.
place. Beautiful flowers.
Thank you.
They're all hers.